Okay, now listen up, I gotta tell the tale that our friend Dave, he's got a podcast as well. He's digging deep in the world of Formula One, uncovering facts. From Monaco and Silverstone, he knows them all. The fastest laps, the big crashes, he won't let them fall. He's got the stories that'll blow your mind, obscure facts and legends, it's one of a kind. So join the race, buckle up and let it begin. Dave's got the knowledge, he's got the secret within. Tune into the podcast, let your engine ignite. Racing facts unleashed, it's gonna be a wild ride.
Hello everybody, I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Welcome to the first racing roundup of the season. This is a new show that I'm going to be running pretty much by myself. Maybe we'll have people on at times, but I'll be going through the news stories that are happening at the moment, what racing you missed over the weekend. So if you don't want to know any of those results, it's kind of Thursday already, so you probably do know. Well, it's not kind of Thursday, it is Thursday. And we will be looking at what we can look forward to for the weekend ahead. So this should be, hopefully, if everybody enjoys it, a show which we'll be putting on every single week. So the first thing, obviously, we will go with the title line that we've had come out today. This is a bit of a fresh news story from the FIA president being under fire by the biggest motorsport committee in terms of a country there is, which is Motorsport UK. And they have expressed a position in regards to the global governance of the sport. Now, the Motorsport UK chairman is David Richards, CBE. He was the boss of ProDrive back in the old days of ProDrive, and he was also the boss. He is also currently the boss of the Motorsport UK committee. You may know him also from BAR and Benetton days back in the early 2000s, where he ran the teams there. The issue they've had, initially they did back the President Mohammed bin Salman, who is looking to get re-elected this year. The key messages in Mohammed bin Salman's election campaign included a hands-off president who would be non-executive and delegate the day-to-day running of the FIA to a professional executive team. The appointment of an empowered and capable CEO to run the FIA to professional standards, and full transparency of actions at the high standards of sporting governance. So all of these things have been brought in, have been the key points of the election campaign by Mohammed bin Salman, who was in charge he's currently in charge of the FIA since 2021. Now, this has all come out in a Motorsport UK booklet that comes out every month. Dave Richards has penned this as a forward word, and it goes on for a few bits of information on why they've took a stand against this. But I will pop the link for this into the channel notes at the end of the show, and then you can all go have a good read of it yourself if you want to. Basically, those promises have not been met by Mohammed bin Salman and the FIA board. We have the key clauses that were objected to by David Richards was a gagging order, as he put it, or a new confidentiality agreement that was brought forward in 2-3 weeks ago, when David Richards and Robert Reid, the former driver of Richard Burns and deputy to Mohammed bin Salman, were both banned or barred from the next World Motorsport Council meeting because they wouldn't sign this. Even though these people, since they got onto the council in 2021, they were bound by a confidentiality agreement and the FIA Code of Ethics. This was something on top of that has come out in the last few weeks. And the key clauses that David Richards, David Richards actually objected to were everything was now considered confidential without any qualification preventing himself as head of the Motorsport UK committee to share relevant information, to what was actually going on. The FIA, at its own discretion, could now decide if anyone breached the terms of the new agreement with no process or frame of reference. So if somebody didn't like what you said, they could say you were breaking this confidentiality agreement. There's no line drawn where it could be. And the final one was there's an immediate €50,000 fine for any breach or a threat of undisclosed damages. So straight away, the money part's been thrown in. Mohammed bin Salam's put this forward to a vote of the council. Two of them did not sign it, and for those two people of motorsport and highly respected motorsport people, David Richards and Robert Reid, were in a position where they had their views denied and barred from a meeting, which is in a breach of what the FIA states that requires all elected members be given full access to meetings. Also during this, David Richards kept fully informed to the Motorsport UK to ensure that he had complete support in this. So to cut a bit of a longer story short, David Richards and Robert Reid not happy about the situation they're in. Mohammed bin Salam wants people to sign this confidentiality agreement if they are in a meeting of the board. And that's where the disagreement comes in. So what happens next? That's the important thing. Integrity is a core value of Motorsport UK and one that is central to who we are. That is literally from Mr. Richards. Quoted, "Our board and executive team will always operate in an open and transparent manner so that our members trust and respect our voice. We are fully aligned with Sports England and UK Sports Code of Governance." So straight away, there's a political issue here where Dave Richards is controlled by something that, Sports England through the UK government on how much transparency he needs for the integrity of the sport. Therefore, Motorsport UK and David Richards have decided that these actions are not within their rulings with the government, and also the actions of the FIA are not within the FIA's own rules. As a result, they have informed them that if they don't have these issues that they have raised addressed very quickly, they will have to engage in further legal action. Now, this is not the best thing in the world in terms of this season or this year in 2025. There's a re-election campaign where a president must be re-elected or appointed a new one. Currently, nobody is there to stand against Mohammed bin Salam. So it's going to be a difficult one there to see what would happen. Personally, in my view, I think this is Dave Richards standing up and could possibly be the next one. I certainly wouldn't mind Dave Richards being part of the committee at a high level in the FIA. He's always been pro motorsports. He's always been very sensible with how motorsport needs to be run. So for me, it's certainly something that needs to be addressed. On top of that, we also have the amount of people who have been removed from the FIA. We've had a huge amount of people in the last 3 years, removed from the FIA. And this is just from January last year. And I've got to thank Paul, who normally joins us on the show, Red Eye, for this list, because he's kept it completely up to date. So we've got the position that basically, if I could just find the list for you. There it is. For some reason, it's come up on the other page. So I'll bring that across. These people have all been taken away from the FIA committee in the last year and a bit. So on January the 8th, Steve Nielsen and Tim Goss, the sporting and technical director, left, which left them confirming that the FIA stated they've restructured the single-seater department. So 2 really experienced heads there will leave the federation. Natalie Robbins, CEO, left in May. The chief executive officer, Natalie Rowan, left the organisation after raising questions about the general governance and professional practices of the FIA, including finances in the president's office. It's not smelling of roses at the moment. Also, especially when the head of the audit committee to look into these allegations, the head of the audit committee, Bertrand Badour, and Tom Purvis, both were sacked in June. Not left, they were sacked. Pablo Basari, the compliance officer, he went in November as well. He was fired. Tim Mayer, which we've all heard about, and Neil Riddich, FIA senior stewards who were told to leave or fired. The F1 driver is really surprised about the departure of Wittich, who has come out recently and said he still hasn't got a reasoning for why he wasn't able to continue in his role. Tim Mayer, claims FIA president, directly involved himself in making his views known via his staff, especially regarding the F1 swearing clampdown, but has headed to WRC as well now, and it's something they really need to look into. Jeanette Tan, the deputy F2 director, she was going to step up to F2, and she was left very quickly. So something, obviously, there is a huge amount of people leaving. And then since then, the head of Commission for Women, Deborah Mayer, Jacob Bangsgaard, who's Secretary for General Mobility, and Luke Skipper, General Director of Communications, all left sort of November, December time, and Andrew Wheatley as well, who's the Road Sport Director. This is all a huge amount of experienced people in the FIA being dropped from their positions when it's a lot of people to be leaving with a lot of experience in a very short amount of time. So personally, I think it's going to be tough for Mohammed bin Salman if he stood against, which is a big caveat in this situation. We don't know if he's been kind of stood up against or not. But let's see what happens, and hopefully along the way we can have this settled before the presidency and then move a bit more forward with that, because it's not exactly something that F1 themselves will want to rumble on, because the FIA president does often head towards the events in terms of F1, so it'll probably be in Australia and things like that. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, especially after the F1 75, where the FIA were booed as well. There's something building here, and I personally think it could be somebody like David Richards who's going to stand against him, and hasn't said so yet. That could be very much one of the processes, but we will see. That is what we're kind of expecting. Anybody else who left? Johnny Herbert left, or got told to not be a steward anymore due to clashing commitments. I kind of get it, but I also don't get it, because they haven't replaced him with anybody, which is a kind of strange thing to do, considering there was an amount of stewards as it is. And I just cannot see where they're going to go with this, because or what corner Mohammed bin Salman can work his way out of, because these are highly respected people in motorsport, not just Formula One, and the FIA govern most of motorsport. So it's going to be a situation where they're really going to have to try and build on this, he's going to have to try and recover his reputation very, very quickly here, because I cannot think of a situation like this, except for maybe Max Mosley after his affairs came out to public and he had to stand down in the end for the good of the FIA. So Jean Todt never had anything like this, and I just find it difficult from that. His position is becoming untenable, but we'll have a think about that as time goes on. Other news from the world of Formula One, we also have a new vodka deal. The deals are going a bit much, I think, now in Formula One, but a new vodka deal seems a bit contradictory when we had the Heineken deal, but it has to be 0% alcohol, but you've just signed up a vodka firm. Yeah, it's not really what I'd expect in terms of Formula One and the way they are working at the moment. If they're going to find some kind of position in this, I would personally say that they need to definitely stand up a bit more and work out where they want to stand. Do you want alcohol advertising, or do you not want alcohol advertising? It's either or. So definitely something for Formula One to try and look at, to try and I don't know, decide where they want to stand on this, because it's, as I say, very contradictory at this moment in time. But it's something we shall look at. Other news, F1 testing finished last week. For those who didn't know, Carlos Sainz and Williams set fastest time in practice for the opening Grand Prix of the season, the early season testing. Carlos Sainz and Williams setting the fastest lap on day 2 of the test, exactly what he did last year. So that's quite interesting now. It presumes Carlos Sainz is on some kind of good form, because he was on good form last year. He's then again gone top of the times this year. Lewis Hamilton also took his time in the Ferrari to go to the top. And next week we will have a F1 prediction show with Red Eye and hopefully Wajid to decide what our predictions will be for Formula One season ahead. And hopefully you can join us all then for that. Sorry. So F1 testing, not a lot of mechanical failures. I think we had a rear bodywork flap up for Ollie Behrman in the Haas. And we had an issue for some of the cars when we were in the pits, but nothing really drastic. There wasn't loads of offs, there wasn't loads of red flags, which was great for testing. Apart from we had rain in Bahrain, which we've hardly ever seen before. Only 2 teams took wet tyres with them. Luckily, it didn't rain too much. And then we had some interesting issues with the lighting, which delayed day 1, but they got that time back at the end of the day. And on day 2, we had a window shatter from the start-finish gantry. So that put glass onto the track and had to delay the session for a little bit longer. But all in all, I think one of the least disrupted 3-day tests I've seen for a long time in terms of all the teams. We'll obviously talk a bit more about how the tests went on next week when we do the prediction show, but teams like Haas and Sauber certainly looking at the long runs rather than other bits, dingo performance testing, basically. Going back to a few other people, there was probably a few performance runs by Ferrari, but they looked very steady. Lando Norris apparently grabbing the headlines in terms of a race run. So McLaren looking strong again. but we're not expecting that much difference in terms of how they line up. But we will have a look at that next week in the prediction show, which will be on Tuesday night. Just having a look at the other news stories that have come out with Formula One. Obviously, Adrian Newey started work for the Aston Martin team on Monday, officially his first day after gardening leave from the Red Bull stable that he's been at since the start of the Red Bull team. So we're looking 2004, 2005 period. First time he's had to take some time out for himself since then. So he's joined Aston Martin. He will be there to design the 2026 car and probably some of the updates for this season. Apparently, Aston Martin, it is rumoured, has arranged for him to have somewhere to sleep in the factory because he's that committed to the 2026 car. Rumours and whether these are true, we'll see. But Adrian Newey, obviously, one of the highly regarded designers in Formula One, and that's where he will be starting from this season. Obviously, the smile on Fernando Alonso's face. Finally, that rookie might get a chance at a third world title. But yeah, I'm only joking, Fernando, obviously. In terms of a rookie, we're in a position that I think Newey will be very pivotal to Aston Martin with their Honda links coming in next season. Speaking of, Honda have turned around and said Yuki Tsunoda is not a junior driver of them. It's just a driver with Honda support. So both Red Bull and Honda, both distancing themselves. Sorry, just had to drop my mouse. Distancing themselves from Yuki Tsunoda this season. So that's very strange in terms of that, and not at all what I was kind of expecting. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there, whether they get to that or not. Other news in terms of MotoGP now. MotoGP going to Pirelli for 2026. MotoGP wanting all three MotoGP, Moto2 and Moto3 to have the same tyre company. So Pirelli stepping up to do the tyres for MotoGP. That means Michelin will leave at the end of the season. Maybe it'll sort out the new tyre issues that they have at the moment with tyre temperature. Maybe it won't. We'll have to wait and see, because obviously Pirellis haven't been on the MotoGP bikes as of yet. And it's just, it'll be interesting to see, because obviously it can change how a rider rides. You look at Enea Bastianini, he's very good at looking after his tyres. Will he be able to do that on the Pirellis? Who knows? I don't think we'll see them exploding, because they haven't got the same F1 requirement, shall we say, for that. Finally, just a few other pieces of news from the world of motorsport that have come up in the last week to get you aware of. Josh Cook, the British touring car driver, will return with One Motorsport in 2026. He has signed a deal to be one of the drivers in the Honda Civic, I believe it is. So they'll be racing that throughout the British touring car season of 2026. Max Verstappen has signed an agreement for a team to go into the GT World Challenge Europe. Bit of a contradictory names there, but it is the GT World Challenge in Europe. We'll get there. Curiously, with his own team, like, he's not going to be one of the drivers. I think one of the drivers is going to be an esports driver from his team at least, who's got radical experience. The name escapes me right now, but Max's team will be running an Aston Martin. That's where it gets interesting, because Aston Martin is not the car that Verstappen's team have currently run. They've run Ferraris. So a bit of a change there. Something new for Verstappen to get his teeth into. We all know he's looked at Le Mans in the future and want to go and do like a GT team. So it'd be interesting to see if he would join them for like a Le Mans, if they ever made it into Le Mans or anything like that. But certainly that is something to keep your eye on to, because obviously Max owning a team or helping fund the Red Line team to have this situation, it is a completely different sort of side to him that some people may not know happens. Going back to British ranks, TOCA Junior. TOCA Junior was a new series that the TOCA package we're going to put on for junior drivers in 2025. That's been delayed till 2026 due to the amount of drivers who have. There's a lot of drivers who have shown interest, but the amount of sign-ups hasn't quite reached what they're after, so they've decided to delay it. That could work in either way. It may actually mean that the drivers who have committed are now not going to commit in 2026 because they might find a different package. It could work both ways, but TOCA's been pretty set that this needs to be the way on the TOCA package, and they need to try and do a little bit more to get people to actually sign up for it. Maybe they'll do a test event at one of the British Touring Car rounds later in the season. I could see that happening at somewhere like Silverstone, where most people know the track anyway, so it's not sort of something for juniors to have to learn too much. And the final piece of news is Cyclone Alfred does not look like it's going to affect the Australian Grand Prix. The new Category 1 Cyclone, which is there at this moment in time, is heading towards landfall around Brisbane area, but luckily it should miss Melbourne. Maybe Melbourne having a few higher winds just on the tail end of it, but they should be all okay for the Grand Prix. Is it the right thing to go to a country that's going to have an issue, weather issue? That's a different matter, but I think they're sort of far enough away not to have to worry about it. And hopefully our thoughts and hopes go to everyone who may be affected by this later on in the year, later on in the week and weekend, because obviously, you know, we don't want it happening to anybody. Right, with that, we will now move on to our next section. Our next section is the results from last weekend. So we're now going to have a quick look through what results have come up in the last weekend, what racing has happened, what results have come up, and we'll move on from there. So if you haven't watched your favourite motorsport event, and it is Thursday, so you probably have by now. If you haven't watched it by now, this is probably the time to look away, because we're going to go on to the results and discuss very quickly some of the major results that happened last weekend, because it was a bit of a big weekend for motorsport. The PT Grand Prix of Thailand happened for MotoGP paddock, and that was won in a dominant style by Marc Marquez on his first ride for Ducati, also winning the sprint race and taking a comfortable championship lead to start the season. Marc Marquez led most of the way, or controlled most of the race in Thailand, but only had Alex Marquez ahead of him at one point as he dropped back to control his tyre pressures. Alex Marquez came home second ahead of double world champion Francesco Bagnaia, who seemed to struggle compared to his teammate this weekend, and it'd be interesting to see how he reacts as the double champion. Franco Morbidelli come home in fourth ahead of the rookie Ayagura. Ayagura with a fourth in the sprint, fifth in the race, making him easily the top rookie for 2025's opening round for a Trackhouse MotoGP team, who have come up with a lovely Gulf livery if you haven't already seen it. Sixth was Marco Bezzecchi, head of Johan Zarco, whereas top KTM Brad Binder come home in eighth ahead of the Red Bull KTM Tech 3 rider of Enea Bastianini. The top Yamaha was Jack Miller in 11th, with the top Honda being Luca Marini in 12th, a much better position than Luca Marini finished for most of the past season. Home rider Chantra came home in 18th ahead of Pedro Costa, and standing rider Luca Salvadori, who was replacing the current world champion Jorge Martin. Also on there, it was the Moto2 race, Moto2 race, which was won by Manuel Gonzalez, the rider who's been on red hot form the last couple of seasons and now leads the championship ahead of Aaron Canet, who come in second. Senna Aguirre took a penalty, long lap penalty at some point of the race, but still come home in third ahead of Diego Moreira. British hope Jake Dixon come home in 7th in his first ride for the Elf Mark VDS racing team, and his teammate come home in 9th, who is Philip Salach. Other notable names who did not make the race finish, it was Vietti. Christian Vietti is very experienced in Moto2, and he unfortunately retired from a race after a collision. Not what he wanted, but it did mean that he will have a lot of work to do in this championship to get back towards the front if consistency is there. In Moto3, it was the third Spanish winner. After Marc Marquez and Gonzalez, Ueda took victory. The 99 bike for Red Bull KTM IO took victory just ahead of newcomer Carpe, who was second. Augusto Fernandez was in third on the Leopard for an all-Spanish podium. Brit Scott Ogden had his first ride for Green Power and showed well until he fell later on in the race. And Eddie O'Shea did not make it round the first lap on his bike, and he will be looking for an improvement at round 2. IndyCar season started in St. Pete as always last weekend, and it's champion Alex Palou who took an early victory, dominating the race ahead of Scott Dixon and Joseph Newgarden coming home in third. Pole position went to Scott McLaughlin, but he fell back to 4th, ahead of Kyle Kirkwood and Marcus Ericsson. New team to the series, Premier Racing come home in 19th and 20th for Callum Ilott and Robert Schwartzman, which obviously they were looking for a bit more. And F1 hopeful Colton Herta, after making the top 6 in qualifying, only made it 16th in the race. So certainly a bit more to show there. Nolan Siegel, Will Power, and debutant Louis Foster all retired on the opening lap. But only Marcus Armstrong was another retiree in the race. So 23 drivers finished out of the 27 who started, which is not bad for a first round of the IndyCar series. Also over in America, the NASCAR series headed for COTA for their round of the championship, and it's Christopher Bell who took victory late on ahead of William Byron and Tyler Reddick. Kyle Busch looked like he might be able to just hang on, but he fell back to 5th behind Chase Elliott near the end of the race, whereas Shane Van Gisbergen come home in 6th place. The World Endurance Championship kicked off as well in Losail in Qatar with their opening race of the season, and it was a Ferrari 1-2-3 there, with the 50 hypercar taking victory ahead of the 83 AF Corsa car, and then Ferrari AF Corsa car of the 51 in 3rd place. BMW hypercar come home in 4th ahead of the 2 Toyotas, and for BMW in 7th. Top Cadillac Hertz-Jota was in 8th, ahead of the top Peugeot, and the Porsches finished down in 10th and 11th place. In GT3, also in the hypercars, we had the Aston Martin's race for the first time, with the Aston Martin coming home in 17th place. The last of the hypercars, I want to say, running in the race. The other one retired with 137 laps to go. So it's not the best of starts for Aston Martin, but one we quite often see from teams in the WEC series. In GT3, that was won by the TF Sport number 33 car, who took victory ahead of the United Autosports McLaren and the team WRT 31 car. Valentino Rossi's debut in the World Endurance Championship finished in 28th position. Looking at junior formulas now, and in the Formula Winter Series, which took place at Motorland Aragon, it was pole position for Gabriel Gomez and Cabra Arang, whereas the race wins were taken by Cabra Arang, and 2 wins for Finn McLaughlin from Ireland with the British high-tech team. And that has put Finn McLaughlin in with a chance of the championship as they head to the final round in Catalonia this weekend. That's something to watch out for. But Gabriel Gomez leads on 182 points. Finn McLaughlin with 115. He's still got a huge mountain to climb there. Leo Robinson is currently in 3rd on 106. Thomas Behrman is in 11th, just behind the top UK driver of Bart Harrison. And the top female driver is Nina Gadman, who is the Dutch lady who raced in British Formula 4 this season, is now 14th in the championship on 13 points. The GT Winter Series also went to Motorland Aragon this weekend, and the first race was won by the number 1 SR Motorsports car of Kenneth Heyer and Moritz Wischgernen. But race 2 and race 3 were both taken by the number 14 Resume Morven Racing. Thomas Anderson and Simon Birch taking 2 victories away from the weekend, which puts them not much higher in the championship because they have missed quite a few rounds. We've missed 2 rounds so far of the championship. So that is 6 races they've not scored from. But they will sit 15th in the championship. Currently, Rui Argus and Cristiano Masil for AF Corsa. They lead way in Cup 1 on 158 points. And the SR Motorsport car, which won this weekend, is 2nd for the GT3 class on 144 points. So that's a bit of a closer championship than the single seaters at the moment. 3rd place, 150 points, is Milos Pavlic and Alessandro Ruffini in the Autosport Racing Cup 4 car. Milos Pavlic, obviously a former British F3 driver as well. So he's there doing driver training with Alessio, but also getting a bit of racing in himself. So the final thing we look at with this situation is what to watch for this weekend. So it is what racing is there to watch this weekend? Well, first thing that is up is Super Formula is back. Their first free practice is in actually only 4 hours' time at the Suzuka circuit. Some British interest in that championship this year, so it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top of that. So that will be live on Motorsport TV if you've got the app. and I believe Jake Sanson might be commentating on that again, but we'll find out on Sunday morning. Also, the NASCAR head to Phoenix. Obviously, NASCAR Cup Series quite often racing multiple weekends in a row. They will head to Phoenix this weekend. And also, the accumulation, the finishing line has been reached for Winter Series, as for GT4, GT Winter Series, Prototype Winter Series, and Formula Winter Series will all be live on Alpha Live on YouTube for March the 9th. So Sunday. It'd be interesting to see who goes and wins those championships, because the points are there for especially the single-seaters. Drivers like Gabriel Gomez, Finn McLaughlin, Leo Robertson, all looking to push themselves up the order, ready for this season. You'll also may see there's a lot of female drivers in that series, so you can always have a look through that and see who might be racing in Formula 1 Academy in the coming season. Just so you know, also in terms of Super Formula, that will be qualifying and race day at 12:50 a.m. and 5:40 a.m. in terms of live coverage. That'll be on Motor TV, and the similar times on the Sunday. The Formula Winter Series will be linked below. I will put the links below for the Alpha Live stream, so they'll be in the captions. You can head to them. I will do that straight after this race if they've got the links up already. And make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the like button on them streams to help the team out as they push more coverage of these two Winter Series out a lot more, alongside the Porsche Winter Series, which they quite often do. So that's it now. That is everything I wanted to fill into this, and it's obviously down to people replying either through YouTube or through Twitch. Let us know what you think of this show, whether you think we should continue with this type of show, whether it's useful for you, and also always feel free to pop it in the comments in the live chat as well, what you think of it. But for now, that's about it. Plenty of racing this weekend on YouTube. I will pop the links into the chat, into the description below. And if you could like and subscribe to the channel, like this video and subscribe to the channel, that will also help us pick up the algorithm and obviously try and bring some of the lower motorsports as well to the masses on YouTube. But for now, that's the end. Goodbye.